My father died in the kitchen. Not dramatically. Not heroically. He just dropped. 1 second he was arguing about the thermostat, the next he was on the tile floor staring at nothing. My name is Lucas Hale. I'm 29 years old. And I watched my stepmother cry louder than anyone in the room. Too loud. The paramedics worked for 12 minutes. Then they stopped. Silence in a house that had never known it. Neighbors gathered. Calls were made. Paperwork began. And before the body was even removed, she moved. My stepmother, Denise, walked straight to the hallway closet and pulled out my father's old leather jacket. The one he never let anyone touch. Let his junk burn with his debts, she said. And she threw it into the fireplace. No hesitation. The flames caught fast. Too fast. I don't remember deciding to move. I just did. I reached into the fire and dragged the jacket back out. The lining burned my palms raw. Denise laughed. Actually laughed. Still protecting him, she said. You have no idea what he left behind. I didn't answer. Because she was right. I didn't. But when I carried that smoking jacket to my room, something felt wrong. The inside lining was heavier than it should have been. Stitched unevenly. Deliberately. And for the first time since my father hit the floor, I wondered if Denise wasn't trying to burn junk. I wondered if she was trying to burn something specific. The house smelled like smoke and antiseptic. Neighbors left. Paramedics left. Even Denise eventually retreated to her bedroom, doors closing softly like nothing had just ended. I locked mine. The jacket lay on my desk, still damp from the sink where I tried to cool it. The leather was scorched along one sleeve. The inside lining had partially melted. But it was still there. Thicker than it should have been. I ran my fingers along the seam near the collar. Uneven stitching. Hand done. Not factory. My father wasn't sentimental about clothes. He wore that jacket for 20 years, sure, but he wasn't the type to hide cash or letters like some old movie cliché. Which meant one thing. Something was inside it. It wasn't emotional. It was strategic. I grabbed a small blade from my desk drawer. For a second, I hesitated. Cutting it open felt like crossing a line. But the fire had already crossed it for me. I sliced carefully along the inner seam. Something crinkled. Paper. Folded tight. Not just one sheet. Several. And beneath them, something harder. Thin. Metal. My pulse shifted. I pulled the folded papers out first. Legal print. Account numbers. Trust documentation. Dates from 6 months ago. 6 months. That's when Denise started pushing him to refinance the house. That's when the arguments began. I unfolded the final page. My name typed clearly. Beneficiary. Primary. Everything. A knock hit my door. Soft. Controlled. Lucas, Denise called sweetly. You're not doing anything stupid in there, are you? I folded the papers once. Twice. Slid them under my mattress. The metal object I kept in my palm. Just cleaning up, I said. The knob turned. Locked. She paused outside the door. Then a soft chuckle. You always were dramatic, Denise said. Your father left nothing but bills. Footsteps retreated. I waited until I couldn't hear her anymore. Then I looked down at what I was holding. A small brass key. Not decorative. Stamped with a bank logo. And a number. Safe deposit box. My pulse slowed. 6 months ago he began arguing with her about refinancing. 6 months ago he opened a trust in my name. 6 months ago he stitched something into a jacket he knew she hated. This wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. I unfolded the documents again. The trust wasn't small. It wasn't symbolic. It was everything. The house. The investments. His private equity stake. All redirected. Signed. Witnessed. Sealed. Except one line caught my attention. Activation upon confirmation of natural death. Natural. My stomach tightened. My father didn't have heart issues. No medication. No history. He argued about thermostats and cholesterol, but he jogged 3 times a week. And he dropped dead mid-sentence. I walked to the kitchen slowly. The tile had been cleaned already. Too clean. Denise stood by the sink. Composed. You should call the estate attorney tomorrow, she said casually. Make sure you understand how little there is. I studied her face. Not grief. Not shock. Control. And for the first time, a thought surfaced that I didn't want to have. What if the jacket wasn't the only thing she tried to burn? What if she was making sure something else never surfaced? I didn't accuse her. Accusations are for people who don't have leverage. I had documents, a key, and a question that wouldn't leave my head. Natural death. That night, I went through my father's office. Not searching wildly. Methodically. His desk drawers were already half empty. Denise had been organizing. His laptop was gone. His phone missing. Police took them, she said when I asked. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. I opened the trash bin. Receipts. Bank statements. A pharmacy slip. Dated 2 days ago. Prescription pickup. Not in my father's name. In hers. I took a picture. Put everything back exactly how it was. The next morning we met the estate attorney. Mr. Calder was in his late 60s, slow-moving but sharp-eyed. He adjusted his glasses as he opened the file. Denise sat beside me, black dress, controlled breathing. Your father updated his trust 6 months ago, Calder began. Denise shifted. Yes, she said quickly. We were restructuring. Calder glanced at her. Actually, Denise, the restructuring removed you as primary beneficiary. Silence. Heavy. He continued. Lucas is sole beneficiary of all major assets. Her hand tightened on her purse. That's not possible, she said softly. Calder blinked. It's signed. Witnessed. Notarized. She turned to me slowly. You knew? No, I said truthfully. Her composure cracked for half a second. Just long enough. Calder closed the file. There is one complication, he added. Denise's eyes flicked up. What complication? The trust activates fully only after coroner confirmation of natural causes. Natural. The word hung in the air again. Denise smiled. Then. Of course it was natural. But her fingers were trembling now. And I realized something terrifying. If the coroner found anything else, the trust wouldn't just activate. It would expose motive. The coroner's office called 2 days later. I answered before Denise could. Mr. Hale, the woman said calmly, we need to ask a few follow-up questions regarding your father's medical history. He didn't have one, I replied. Pause. That's what concerns us. Denise was standing across the kitchen when I hung up. What did they say? She asked too quickly. Routine clarification, I said. She nodded. Too fast. That afternoon I drove to the bank. The brass key felt heavier than it should have in my pocket. Safe deposit box 417. The manager verified my ID twice. When the box slid out, my hands were steady. Inside, a flash drive, a sealed envelope, and a small leather notebook I'd seen my father write in but never read. I opened the notebook first. Dates. Short entries. 6 months ago. Denise pushing refinance aggressively. Met with Dr. Patel, second opinion. Medication tastes off. My breath slowed. The last entry was 3 days ago. If anything happens to me, Lucas must not trust the obvious. The obvious. I closed the notebook carefully. The sealed envelope was addressed to me. Inside was a printed lab report. Independent toxicology screening. Trace amounts of beta-blocker compounds detected in his bloodstream. He was never prescribed beta blockers. I sat back slowly. The flash drive was last. Security camera footage. Kitchen angle. Time-stamped. Denise preparing tea. A small vial. 1 drop. I stared at the screen. Not heart failure. Not natural. Deliberate. My phone buzzed. Message from Denise. The coroner confirmed natural causes. It's over. I looked at the footage again. And understood something chilling. She thought the evidence burned with the jacket. She didn't know my father had prepared for fire. And she definitely didn't know. I wasn't planning to confront her. I was planning to wait. I didn't take the footage to the police. Not yet. If I did, Denise would panic. And panic destroys patterns. I needed her comfortable. The coroner officially ruled it cardiac arrest. Natural causes. No extended toxicology ordered. Closed file. Exactly what she wanted. Exactly what she expected. That night, Denise poured herself wine in the living room like nothing had shifted. You see, she said softly. Stress. That's all it was. I watched her from across the room. I guess so, I replied. She smiled, relief disguised as sympathy. I'm glad you're not fighting me on this. Fight her? No. I was building something else. The next morning I called Dr. Patel. The name from my father's notebook. He remembered him immediately. He was concerned, Patel said carefully. He believed someone was adjusting his supplements. Did you test anything? I asked. I recommended independent screening, Patel replied. He told me he was documenting everything. Good. Very good. I drove back to the bank. This time I copied the flash drive. Twice. One copy went to an encrypted cloud storage. One went somewhere Denise would never think to look. Inside the house. Hidden. The same way my father had hidden the trust. That evening, Denise made tea again. Same kettle. Same cabinet. Same calm movements. She offered me a cup. I took it, smiled. Didn't drink. Because I had noticed something else in the footage. The vial wasn't stored in the kitchen. It came from her purse. Which meant it wasn't habit. It was intent. And people who act with intent rarely stop after one success. She sat across from me watching. "You're quiet lately," she said. "I'm thinking," I replied. "About what?" "About how careful someone would have to be to make a death look natural." Her smile didn't fade, but her hand tightened slightly around the mug. Good. Now she knew. I wasn't grieving anymore. I was observing. She didn't poison me that night. That told me everything. If she were reckless, she would have panicked and escalated. Instead, she adapted. Denise began acting fragile. Softer voice. Smaller presence. Widow mode perfected. But grief doesn't check bank accounts. And 3 days later, she tried to move money. Not much. Just enough to test the boundary. The joint account. I had already flagged it. The transfer bounced. She came into my room that evening without knocking. "They froze the account," she said carefully. "It must be some mistake." "I asked them to," I replied. Her mask slipped. Only for a second. "You don't trust me?" she asked. The performance was almost impressive. "I trust paperwork," I said calmly. Silence stretched between us. Then she made her mistake. "You can't prove anything," she said. "Not what?" "Not that. Anything." I watched her carefully. "You're right," I said softly. And that confused her. I stood up slowly and walked to my desk. Opened my laptop. Turned the screen toward her. Kitchen footage. The vial. The drop. Her face drained of color. For the first time since my father died, she looked afraid. "You think that's enough?" she whispered. "No," I said honestly. "It's not." And that was the truth. Video shows action. It doesn't show substance. She leaned back slightly, regaining composure. "You'll ruin yourself chasing ghosts." I nodded. "Maybe." Then I said something I hadn't planned to say. "Or maybe I'll let you think you're safe." That was when I saw it. Not fear. Not guilt. Calculation again. And I understood something dangerous. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about what my father left in that safe deposit box. Because she didn't know what else he documented. And neither did I. Not yet. I didn't call the police the next day. Or the day after. Denise expected a dramatic move. Accusation. Arrest. Public spectacle. Instead, I filed a civil petition. Quietly. For independent exhumation. The footage wasn't enough for criminal charges. But the trust clause was. Activation upon confirmation of natural death. If death was ruled not natural, the estate didn't just transfer. It froze. Until investigation concluded. Denise didn't know that. She showed up at my door 3 mornings later, pale, shaking, holding a court notice. "You exhumed him?" she whispered. I didn't answer. The second autopsy found what the first didn't look for. Elevated synthetic beta blocker concentration inconsistent with accidental exposure. Not enough for murder charges. Enough for suspicion. Enough to reopen everything. Bank accounts frozen. Estate under review. Insurance claims suspended. Her face when she realized the house wasn't hers anymore. That was the moment she truly understood. "You're destroying everything," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm preserving it." Weeks later, the prosecutor declined criminal filing due to insufficient chain of custody proof. Technicalities protect careful people. But civil court doesn't need beyond reasonable doubt. Only preponderance. She lost claim to the estate. Left quietly. No dramatic arrest. No confession. Just consequence. I kept the jacket. Repaired the burned lining. The trust activated fully 6 months later. Sometimes I sit in my father's office and reread the last line he wrote. "If anything happens to me, Lucas must not trust the obvious." He didn't tell me to avenge him. He told me to think. Denise tried to burn what she couldn't control. She forgot something simple. Fire destroys carelessness. Preparation survives it.